at Generation Schools Network, and I support the SEL team really behind the scenes. I do the grant writing and any other support work that I can offer. I met Dr. Deb several years ago at a women's conference and heard this amazing program that she had developed called RIM. And I was so excited to reconnect with her last summer when I attended with several other GSN members a similar training that we're going to talk about today. So I'd like to read Dr. Deb's bio to you, just so you can hear about this successful woman that's sitting here with us today. So Dr. Deborah Sandella is the author of the #1 international bestseller, Goodbye Hurt and Pain, 7 Simple Steps to Health, Love, and Success. She is an award-winning psychotherapist, university professor, and the originator of the groundbreaking RIM method, which is a heavily backed neuroscience tool proven to reduce stress and improve quality of life. She's been featured in the media, including USA Today, CBS, and CNN, and her numerous professional awards include Outstanding Clinical Specialist, Research Excellence, and an EVVY Best Personal Growth Book Award. Dr. Deb, thanks so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you, Kim. I'm very excited to be here today. Yes, it's been wonderful to work with Generation Schools. So,
well, tell us a little bit about that, about the GSN and RIM partnership, how that came to fruition.
Well, it was actually quite serendipitous that I had been involved with some schools and training teachers for a while. However, when I saw after the STEM school shooting, I saw Wendy's Denver Post editorial talking about what she saw would prevent the shootings. And I went, absolutely, this is somebody who shares the same vision I do. So I wrote her a letter and said I was so grateful that she had written that and that she had said her daughter was in that school. And so I just offered for her daughter and any other students or teachers that she knew of that were traumatized, I offered to do some pro bono RIM. And that ended up happening. And after that, Wendy was sold when she saw the results, particularly with her own daughter.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, what is RIM? Can you give us an idea of how it can work in schools?
Yes. And so I would say just briefly that RIM is a non-clinical verbal process that is client generated. So the client's always in control, which is a huge difference between many, many things. And probably the best way to help people understand what it can look like in schools is to share a story about a 7th grade boy that actually was facilitated by a brand new teacher graduate of the Essentials program. And so this 7th grade boy got kicked out of his classroom for cussing his teacher out and refusing to do the work. And so he came to the principal's office, and then Sonia met him. She was in a behavioralist position, or interventionist, I think, are sometimes used, where they catch all the fallout. And so she sat with him, just very gently sat down and said, well, let's just sort this out. Would that be okay? And I have this new process that I think could be useful. It's kind of like having an inner video game. Would that be okay if we do that? And he said, okay. And with his eyes open or closed, because kids don't always need their eyes closed to imagine. And so I think I don't know, actually know whether he closed his eyes or not. She didn't say when she told me about this, but he then settled into his body, began to sense what he was experiencing in his body. And it was clear he had a lot of upset And so there was a focus on some area in his chest. And as they began to focus on this area of unrest in his body, all of a sudden, spontaneously, he remembers that his dad had yelled at him that morning before school. And when he had said to his dad, it doesn't feel good when you yell at me, Dad. His dad had said, well, I'm your dad. I can yell at you anytime I want to. So there was this and that's how it was left when he came to school. And so as that was remembered, he felt pretty sad and frustrated. And so Sonia then guided him again to have his imagination call in a resource that could be with him to help make things safe as he was remembering this experience. And all of a sudden, his grandfather showed up. And now and soon, even my reading about it, I felt the shift in the energy. It was like, whoa, you could feel anger soften completely. And he started being aware of his grandfather being there, and his grandfather actually had died the year before, so had not been physically available anymore. So this imagined grandfather with him again evoked a feeling of being loved. And it was like he had been not feeling loved when his dad yelled at him, and now he started feeling loved. And as he felt loved, then the feeling in his body was really different. So Sonia was helping him sense how his body felt now. And as he found this place of greater softening and feeling loved, she said, is there anybody else that you need to talk to? And who shows up but his teacher? And then he starts telling his teacher, well, the reason I got so upset is because I really don't understand how this activity is going to help me get a job. And it's like, okay, well, we can understand. Probably that's what his dad is struggling with. And it's all that stress is flowing down to this little guy, 7th grade guy. And so he was able to really feel heard by his teacher. And then he spontaneously said, well, I don't feel angry anymore, and I'm ready to go back to class. So he went back to class. His teacher was pretty amazed at how he looked physically different. He had a casual experience, like presence in his body, and had a smile on his face. And really, there was just no more resistance. There was no more oppositional attitude. And so he joined the class and participated where they were at that point in time. Now, this all happened it took about 20 minutes. And so it's really demonstrates how RIM is really different than therapy. And it's really different than what's happening generally now in schools or in SEL curriculums.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. How great for the situation to be resolved so quickly and so easily.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because it put everybody out of their suffering. I mean, nobody felt good when when he was cussing
Right.
his teacher. And it also was healing, for him to return to class and be softened and not need to be upset with his teacher. That was really important for the healing of his classmates. Because that's really
Absolutely.
so disruptive when we have that level of disruption in a classroom.
Yeah, and it didn't escalate any further.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And so how would you say RIM is a game changer shift, a game changing shift for
Yeah,
just the whole world of SEL?
right. And I think this came clear to me when Wendy and I started talking, and I was explaining how I saw RIM to be involved. And actually my very first job was in schools after graduate school, where I was a troubleshooter for the special education for kids who were having emotional issues. And what I discovered very quickly is it didn't work to have parents, say to refer them out into the community. It just wasn't happening. So I just started doing it. I just started doing all the work and working with kids, with their parents. And that's really what RIM allows, is that we can actually shift the emotional disruption that's in the student, that's in the classroom, that becomes repetitive when it's not worked through. So the one thing is, we know trauma is cumulative, and so is healing. So you get a few repetitions of this with somebody, even though their parents may not change, their inner sense of feeling resourced and loved does change. And it is cumulative. So they grow more and more strong in themselves, and less need to act out. So misbehavior is acting out. We would call that acting out behavior in psychology. And it's because it's acting out something that's invisible and not spoken, but we don't know what it is. And so RIM allows that whatever is invisible or unspoken to be discovered and expressed. And as the facilitator, like I said, it's non-clinical. So it's totally, totally different than therapy. There's no analysis or talking about. It's all what is the inner experience of the student or the client, so that what I have discovered. So here's what I've discovered that I did not learn in graduate school is that actually we have an inherent emotional operating system that's very functional. And if we work with it, it actually easily heals emotional wounds and even prepares us for new experiences in some really magical ways. But when we try, so much of what we've been doing for years is try to control emotions manually. And it's we know, if you've ever tried it, it doesn't really work. I mean, it may help you forget for a while, or set aside your feelings, but they don't go away. They just go invisible.
So naturally or organically processing your emotions rather than just continuing to talk about them.
Absolutely. Oh yeah. And we even in therapy now, there's enough research to show that if you keep talking about a trauma over and over and over, it's like having a recording. So the emotional memory in the body and in the brain is like a recording, that the groove gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And pretty soon what I have seen is it becomes an identity for the person. And then that starts to get harder to erase. Like with young students, it's very easy. They're quick.
Right.
Yeah, they're very quick. And it lasts. So that, like what Sonia found, and some other teachers who have been RIM trained, is that then the students they worked with become the marketers. You need to go talk to so-and-so, you need to go talk to Sonia. They've used it for many things, like students that were having new students that were having school anxiety, didn't want to come to class, were out in the car with their parents, that kind of thing. With bullying, students getting angry with each other. That kind of thing. And it's just so helpful, because when we allow the natural process to be safely allowed, and we're very clear about safety in RIM, there are a lot of tools to make sure that things stay safe, that what happens is we organically and naturally arrive at compassion for ourselves and for the other. So this could be used in a lot of places. We could use
absolutely
in a lot of places.
Absolutely. Getting rid of that anger is a good thing.
Yeah.
Tell us about your experience at Parkland.
Yeah. I was invited to Parkland because there was a parent who had been at a Jack Canfield conference and had a breakdown, and I had ended up working with her, and she was just so blown away by what her results were personally. And she then organized and invited me to come work with some parents, some students, and some teachers. And I was there about 3 days. It was the first anniversary of the Parkland shooting, which, as we know with any loss, or maybe you don't know, but what I would share is that the first anniversary of any loss is very significant,
Mhm.
and frequently elicits flashbacks or remembrances about the original loss. And so it was a very critical time. When I sat with the people who were there, I was struck by how they were still frozen in the shock. And you can
Mhm.
tell somebody's frozen in shock when they have that stare, like a deer in headlights, and it doesn't change, or
Mhm.
when their body is absolutely like nobody's home, it's just empty, it's like a shell. Then that means when we're in shock, we're not inhabiting our body really. We're out, we're in our head, or we're somewhere escaping.
Mhm.
So that we're not present. Like the psychological term was, it's a kind of disassociation.
Mhm.
So that, but I don't like to use psychological terms anymore, 'cause I really, the shift here is away from mental health. It's not a mental thing, and it's not sickness, it's normal, to emotional health and safety.
Mhm.
And that's really how I see it. So that the REM process is very normalized. It's very much about normalizing our feelings and dealing with our feelings, because we all have a range of feelings. It doesn't have to be mental illness in any way. And when there is serious mental illness, what we call now in psych, we would call it serious mental illness, which are things like schizophrenia, paranoia, mania, these kinds of things, then they need special attention.
Mhm.
It's always very important to discern those. But it honestly, with young children, it's not typical to have serious mental illness actually be diagnosed. I know some
Mhm.
people do it. I have reactions to that because it starts putting them in a label too early, and they're not really fully developed yet. But usually, the time of onset, most common time of onset for serious mental illness for some of them is like in the early 20s and sometimes in the 40s. But childhood is generally not, although there may be. I mean, I would never say never about anything. So
Mhm.
in the class, the teacher class, I will be talking about discerning the difference,
Yeah.
because that's very important, because we don't want teachers dealing with that other than coordinating with how this student needs to be um, treated so that it's congruent with the treatment plan. And I used to do that when I was working with the Arapahoe School District. I did a lot of that coordination with their therapist. So it's not
Mhm.
necessarily, working with their emotions, but however their emotions are spilling out in the school, you want
Mhm.
to be able to intervene with them in a way consistent with their treatment plan. So, but that is beyond REM. REM is not for serious mental illness. It is only for what I would call emotional health, emotional well-being.
Yeah. Yeah. So why now? How can RIM support the school staff amidst the challenges and stresses of the past year?
Yeah, and I don't know. All of a sudden, before we move to this next thing, it popped in my mind about Parkland. The one thing I didn't talk about is I did do some individual sessions with people that were in great distress,
Mhm.
because they either had a student that was in the room, like one mother, her daughter was the best friend of somebody who had been shot, and she was in the
Mm.
same classroom when she was shot. So they were in great distress. And so she wanted a private session, and I did. And it was fascinating because as we were sensing what she was experiencing in her body, and this talks about the power of our organic system. That's how this demonstrates power of our organic system in a way that therapy can't do.
Mhm.
um, is she said, well, it's like I've got this knot in my stomach. And she was actually at the time running. The way she was dealing with all of her feelings was she was a jogger. She would be running 10 miles 2 or 3 times a week. It's a lot of, getting the stress out. And she said, there's these knots in my stomach. I said, okay, so go ahead and move your awareness closer into that energy of the knots in your stomach and just let me know what you're noticing. And she goes, well, as I'm moving closer, I'm seeing that actually it's turning into worms. It's like a cluster of worms and they're eating the inside of my stomach. And I was like, so that tells you the degree of what was going on invisibly within her body. And so it's like, so go ahead with a virtual resource. I won't go through that, but she had support. So she wasn't afraid. And her and the virtual resource moved into that energy to see what was there at the source. And in the center of that energy was the image of her sitting in the car while the school was in lockdown and her daughter was was in the classroom in lockdown. And she just wanted so badly to run in and grab her daughter and run out and leave, but she wasn't able to. And that was all delayed. Well, that is when trauma gets stuck. When our instinct to protect ourselves and those around us gets blocked, then that's where the emotional stuckness gets, and the trauma doesn't go away. It stays around. So I said, go ahead now, as you're in that car, because we're recreating a new emotional memory. As you're there, go ahead and do that. Go run in and get her. Tell me what's happening as you're doing it. Bring her back to the car. And so she went through her narrative. She goes, oh, I'm running in here. She goes, here's the classroom. She goes, oh, now I see what my daughter's been describing. Oh, yeah, it is so hard. And she grabs her daughter. She comes back and gets into the car and they're there and they just hug. And in that moment, this urge to run evaporated. This urge to be able to protect her daughter was met. It's like the need to do that was met. It didn't matter that it was in imagination. And we know this from the research, from MRI research, that imagining something and you're in the situation records as an emotional memory the same as if it really happened, just not quite as bright on the MRI. And it's not the same as factual memory. We don't lose our memory, but it changes the feeling. It changes the emotional memory, is the feeling in the body of it. So I wanted to add that. I don't know why, but it popped in. So it felt like maybe I need to add this.
That's amazing. Thanks for sharing. And I think it's a great, segue into the next question we want to talk about, is that many people have experienced trauma through the past year of varying degrees. And when I ask why now, how can RIM support staff as they navigate those stresses for themselves and for their students?
Absolutely. So now is absolutely the perfect time, because one thing that a lot of people don't really understand or know is that when we are most triggered, we have the greatest access for very quick transformation and clearing of trauma. It's just really there. When it gets delayed for years, it's just takes a little more time. I don't mean sessions, but in a session, it takes a little longer to get there. But right now, everybody's been triggered. There's so much stress. Everybody is not feeling their usual balanced self at whatever level of balance they've been in. And that means to be able to do REM work now, and I wouldn't call it work, but the REM processing now means that it'll work, that it'll have access so it happens quickly, and more deeply and more completely. So that it's the perfect time. And the training itself is absolutely set up to have 2 tracks. One is personal growth, and one is learning how to help others with it, to learn the process. And so the teachers or staff who do the training this summer will have the chance for emotional recovery. There's also in the package, it is an individual session outside of the training. And we're going to be doing those prior to the training so people have access to some relief very quickly. And also the option, because we're adding the ACE test, ACE scoring to the application, that if there's anybody that needs more intervention there, like if they have trauma history, then those school staff will be having the opportunity for some additional individual REM work so that they're ready then to step into the class and be ready to learn how to do REM with others.
Yeah, sort of like putting on your oxygen mask before you can put on somebody else's, right?
Absolutely.
I found that very helpful when we
Yes.
went through the training.
Yes, it really, I know it's been so interesting because to hear you guys, to hear all of you keep saying how much it helped you personally. I mean, it just does my heart good to know. So
Well, thanks, Dr. Deb. We really appreciate you. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we turn it back over to Ellen?
I just would say that it has over time, whoops, why did I get here? There's something. Ellen's showing up with an email in front of my screen. Maybe she's telling me not to talk anymore. That I think the main thing is that as I have worked with schools and teachers at whatever level I have already, it's so clear to me that this can be a game changer. If we have at least one person who catches the fallout that can respond immediately in a school day, that could really just make everything so different. And so, even though I've been mostly in the private sector rather than the nonprofit sector, that this feels like it's become my new mission because it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, and I care very much about children. I even have grandchildren now, so. And they're so vulnerable, they're so vulnerable, and it has not been easy because we've had school shootings for a while now, and in addition, before the pandemic. So that's really all I would say.
Yeah, RIM is definitely a game changer for in school environment. Ellen, we're going to give it back to you to go over the logistics.
Perfect. Thanks, Kim. And before I dive into that, are there any just initial questions, thoughts, reactions from the Q&A with Kim and Dr. Deb? And feel free to unmute yourself.
Or write it in the chat too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we'll have more time for discussion in just a little bit here, but I'm actually going to transition into sharing my screen. So we're going to just talk a little bit about like Kim said, the sort of logistics and registration behind the summer teacher training for June and July. And Jade also actually just dropped it in the chat box. You can go ahead and open that up on your screen as well. So this is the main page for registration, and I'll walk through it briefly with everyone. And then when we're in breakout rooms in just a little bit here, you'll have some time to sort of talk with one another. And we also have some other SEL coaches from GSN here today, which is awesome. So I'm going to try and pair everyone with their coaches so that you guys can dive into this deeper. But as you scroll down, it goes over some of the things that you should expect with the training. So like Dr. Deb was saying, there's the week-long training, of course, that takes place during the June and the July dates, but there's a lot that comes with it afterwards, which really helps to build your capacity and empower you to be successful with RIM moving forward. Down below are just some additional details about not only the dates, but the timing. The first day, we're actually going to do a 10 a.m. start, and the last day finish at 3 p.m. So we'll end early there. Each day or the other days will take place from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The location will be at Generation Schools offices in Denver, Colorado. So we have the location posted here. We'll also have CEU certification available after attending the training. And then this talks a little bit more about the payment for the training. We have actually successfully had schools be able to request funding from ESSER using ESSER dollars to be able to attend this training, and have been accepted for actually quite a good amount of money to be able to attend this in person. So it does work to apply for ESSER dollars and be able to get funded to be able to attend. There's also, go ahead, Dr. Deb, yeah, dive in.
Yeah, the other thing is the ESSER can also cover the, what do you call it, travel expenses. It's not just for the tuition, but for the travel expenses as well, covering that.
Great, thank you for adding that in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit more about the cost itself. And then as you scroll down here, it'll go through day by day what you should expect. And Dr. Deb, anything that you'd want to add on this portion as I sort of scroll through the days?
No, I don't think so. I think if you want to read them, maybe that would be useful. Just read through them.
Yeah, of course. So day one, how to have emotional predictability through understanding how feelings work. So some of the things that you'll be learning is how the emotional brain is different from the logical brain. This came up a lot in conversations with Kim and Dr. Deb, but how to organically and naturally turn feelings on and off. Facilitating personal breakthroughs. I personally experienced this with Dr. Deb, and I remember thinking it wasn't going to happen, and it very much did. And oh my goodness, what a powerful experience. I'm going to get emotional now, so I'm just going to keep moving on. How unrecognized expectations block growth. As you can tell, day one is you dive right in. I think Wendy said this before, it's no sit and get. It's just the entire time. Time flies by, it's 5 p.m. It's the end of the day and you don't even realize it. So it's no sit and get. A lot of experience, a lot of modeling and trying things out. Day two, so 3 emotion processing skills that will work with any problem. So this is when you dive into some of the skills behind RIM, how to calm the brain when a breakdown starts, how to empty those toxic feelings. And that really is, I would say, Dr. Deb, that's happening throughout the entire week, throughout each of the days. A way to create internal safety. Day 3 is to locate emotional blocks in the blink of an eye. And I'll just walk through a little bit faster here so we have time for breakout rooms. Day 4 is a step-by-step process for resolving negative emotion. Releasing hurt, pain, regret, rage, how to protect yourself from others' pain and sadness. And then day 5 is really about planning how to integrate RIM into your schools, into your classroom. So more of this sort of application piece, taking everything that you've done throughout the week and thinking about application and what this is really going to look like in our schools. And the last thing I would say is just when you click on the register now button, it'll take you to, it'll ask you just for some quick contact information, the week that you would like to register for. So the June dates or the July, and then how you want to pay. So there's an option for credit card and check. So if you click check and register, Dr. Deb and her team will be in touch with you afterwards to set up that invoice. So you'll be hearing from them in a follow-up email. For the credit card option, when you click register now, it'll give you that confirmation. Thanks so much for signing up. And then a button to actually pay at that time via credit card. Did I get that right, Dr. Deb? Is there anything?
That's correct. Yes, it's on the thank you for registering, and then there'll be pay with a credit card. It's a red button, and you just click on that and go ahead and do that.
Perfect. So yeah, I think that's it in terms of the registration page, unless anyone has any initial questions just about this, this for right now. Yeah, go
we
ahead.
didn't talk about how much because I didn't see it in the pages we were on. That's okay. So we can just say that it was what, $17.97?
1797. Yep. And
And
that
that was inclusive for everything.
yep.
Yeah,
Right
there.
there. And then this again gives you more information about how you can cover those training costs. Okay. Anything else, Dr. Deb?
No, I don't think so. Anybody else? Kim or anybody else catch anything? Oh, we would like to, we'd like to know as soon as possible, and just so that we can be making plans for the summer, and also get the people who are registered, get them the applications and get their individual sessions set up at their convenience, after school. I'm assuming after school finishes, so that they can feel good. They can feel that recovery.
Awesome. Okay, so I think with that, we will spend the next 10 minutes or so actually in breakout rooms. And so I have tried to put everyone together. There should be an option to actually go back to the main room. So if you have a specific question for Dr. Deb, feel free to join back into the main room. If not, Jade is going to drop a couple of questions, just some suggested talking points. They're optional, but just to sort of guide the conversation. She'll drop that in the chat box. So some of the questions are just, what are your thoughts overall about attending the training? Were there any questions that have come up, either about RIM or the training in itself? What is it that you'd like to get out of this experience? And then if there's anything that's sort of standing in your way right now from registering, is it funding? Is it travel? Is it lodging? What might that be? And again, you'll be with your coaches to have some discussions about that. Okay, so I'm going to open up the rooms, and then we will be back in about 10 minutes or so to just share out as a whole group.
And I know, Lori, Lori missed some of the first part of the presentation. So maybe just a brief recap for everyone.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. And where are you?
I'm in Otis, actually, Northeast.
Oh, Otis is a place. Okay. Sorry. I didn't know that. I do live in Colorado, but
that's what everyone says, even about Yuma too. I live in Yuma, about 15 miles.
Okay. Well, I am familiar with Yuma.
Okay.
So that's good. Yeah. So I'm not sure what you're wanting to know since we're on
Just
time.
a little bit. I wondered if several of the individuals kind of talked about their experience, or what I missed to begin with, just an introduction.
Yeah, I think, well, it was like I did a bit of talking about my experiences, how I came to be involved with schools and what my experiences with schools have been with RIM. So it was more of that. When did you get in? Come on.
You were talking, but I guess I just want a little bit of an overcap of what it would look like first jumping into this if you sign up.
Yeah, so jumping into it is you would get a free individual session as part of the program before, like after school's over, but before the training. And then you would attend either the June or the July training,
right?
And which is it's like 5 days, although you have time to drive there the first day and you have time to drive home the last day, so you don't have to stay in Denver and for those 2 days, but you would be in Denver for the other days. And so that's why you want to, if you apply for funds, you want to include your travel funds as well, that is included in that. And in the training, were you here when you saw like day 1 through 5? Yeah. Okay, so that's what we would be covering in the training. That then what is included in that is 12 weeks of individual coaching with applying, like practicing RIM. so that you would have a mentor assigned to you, and the two of you would communicate regularly, and that person would guide you through some initial practices so that you integrate it. It's not, RIM is not difficult, it's non-clinical, it just is unfamiliar because we're not used to something being client generated. And that's the big shift. That's the big shift, is to not do too much. That's the hard part, is always, no, you don't have to do anything. Just follow the client right now with what they're saying. And then given what they're saying, just keep going with that. And that is what is just unfamiliar. It's not hard. It's so much easier than anything else we have tried to do. It's just unfamiliar. So, and we want it to be, we always want it to be safe. So we want to make sure that the safety, the built-in safety measures are understood, because we are dealing with emotion. And so that you feel comfortable, that you feel confident, that you feel okay helping students that are upset. Because in our culture, and Penny was at the very first forum where, we talked and even did it a little experience. The biggest thing that happens here is people learn to not be afraid of like intense emotion that's not very pleasant, like anger and rage and grief. They're all normal. They are not mental illness. I want to be really, really clear. That's not mental illness. It is all normal as part of being a human being, as part of our humanity. And not only that, their security are the feelings actually are giving us constant feedback that helps keep us emotionally safe. But when we don't look at them that way, we don't know how to receive them. And if we turn them off, we try to distance from them, we leave ourselves more vulnerable to being harmed in a variety of ways, like particularly anger. Anger is really misunderstood. And when we understand it, it becomes not a big thing, and can be received and allowed very quickly. It starts to automatically dissipate. Just to allow ourselves, even in our own body and our own mind, to feel angry, not acting out or anything, just feeling angry, is actually in our system. It is a kind of safety. And so it automatically starts to evaporate. That automatically starts to evaporate when we allow it. Just allow ourselves to even say, hey, I'm feeling angry, and then feel it, like just feel it. It's amazing. I mean, it feels very magical. It feels very magical. I can tell you that in the coaches that Generation Schools coaches can tell you, because they've been through the training before, it can feel so magical. But this is who we are. We're born with this resourced resilience. We've just been overriding it rather than collaborating with it, than trusting it. And so during that time, you will see in your own experiences and the experiences of others, you'll experience the safety of the system, of your own system and your others' systems, and then how we collaborate with it, how to collaborate with it. That's what you learn, and you practice it. So you, like Ellen was saying, you become a believer. It's like, you can't talk people into those things. As a psychotherapist and mental health professional, I tried for over 20 years. It's really not easy. Yes, Penny, go ahead.
Yeah. Lori, I think you and I are kind of in the same boat, because I'm from Kit Carson. And so I went through this training. First of all, it's unbelievable. And I was probably the biggest skeptic about it. And it was unbelievable. And I just think that it's a resource for us in small schools, because you know as well as I do how long it takes to get help for somebody. Like that's,
yeah,
it's just hard out here. And if we can teach those kids, and sometimes they don't really need help, they just need understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And if they understand themselves, then they're going to be able to take care of that. And that's kind of what this imagination does. I mean, I just think the research on imagination and emotion is so interesting anyways. And I don't think we give it enough credit. And that is a survival tool for us on the Eastern Plains, I think. And so it all sounds really crazy and kind of out there, but it is so amazing. And I think that this could be our ticket on the Eastern Plains to helping kids, and we need it. So
When did you take it, Penny?
I did it in December. She did a class. She did it just at this little, I haven't even had the full training. I don't even know what my life's going to be like when I have the full training. But I just did the 2-hour webinar with her, and
Wow.
I didn't even know what I was signing up for. I just thought, oh, I'll go to this. So I like CJ, so I'll go to this. And it was
Thanks, Penny.
eye-opening to me. It was just eye-opening to me. And I realized this could be something that could be so beneficial to not just our kids, because we can't always change our families, the families. I liked what she said today, that you may never change that kid's parents, but you'll change that kid in how to react in a situation. And I think that's where we're at, because I think we're, as educators, we're trying to change too many people that we can't. But if we can help that kid cope with that stuff, then they can make it through anything, I think. So I just know that I'm in I know what you're in a small school, and this sounds crazy, but it really is. I think this is our ticket, and the more people we get on board with it, the more powerful it's going to be for us out here.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Penny. And actually, Penny, I want to give you feedback. You look so different than December.
Oh, am I glowing? Because you said I would glow after that.
Yes, you do. You definitely look very different. Yes, it's very clear that you're in a very different place right now.
I am.
And so, yeah. So thank you. And thank you for sharing. I so appreciate that. Was there anybody else that had started to talk in your group, Donna, that didn't, or was that mostly?
No, I think that's mostly where we're at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And is it Adriana? Are you there, Adriana? I don't know. Do you have any questions?
Not as right now. I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm just driving my kid to baseball.
Okay.
Game, so
I understand.
that's what I'm being kind of quiet, but I don't know. It seems really interesting, and I don't know. I will hope to be able to attend, and especially because I'm from Wiggins. I'm sorry, Wiggins School District.
Yes.
And it's been kind of a challenging to deal with emotional, especially because we're receiving migrant students.
Oh yeah.
Unattended students. So it's hard to deal with that drama and not take it personally. I'm a migrant too, and it's hard. So I would love to attend if possible. I will try my best.
Yes. Well, yeah, great. I hope you can. If you need any help with figuring out the funding and stuff, then CJ, or who's your Wiggins? I don't know who your coach is. Who's your coach?
It's Anna.
Anna. Okay. So
yes.
I don't know. Anna's not quite as involved. Who of your team could
Jade
help?
Jade is as well. I work really close with Jade.
Okay. So Jade would be, you and Jade could talk about getting that funding, and
yes.
Jade can get, point you in the right direction with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, keep your eye on the road.
Yes, I will. I already parked. So I'm here. So my
okay.
is not there, but I'm in my car right now.
That's
thank you,
good.
though.
That's good. Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else that anybody else have any questions or comments at all? Penny, do you have any questions about the specifics? Is Debbie registering for you?
I think Robert registered for us.
Okay, I need, because Debbie, like it came through just Debbie, and I know that there were more people coming than that.
Yeah, I have to ask Robert tomorrow. I didn't know for sure if he was registering us or if we needed to register independently.
Yeah, anybody can do it, but we do need each individual person who's attending to fill out a form, a registration form.
And then do we have to, I'm thinking that he'll have us.
He can pay for everybody.
Oh, okay.
He can pay for everybody together at one time. But but we need your contact information so we can send you the application and stuff, get you
Okay.
started and get things organized.
Okay.
But then, so what you could do is I think Debbie wrote check, and then we'll invoice. We could, if there's several from the same school, we can invoice Robert. Just give us direction
Okay.
for everybody together.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay.
And this is CJ, and I can send an email and CC you on it, so we all are just on, and I can support however.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, CJ.
Yeah, no problem.
And Morgan.
And Morgan just joined us. She's with Lori and Otis.
Oh, great. Good.
Yeah, sorry, I had a client right after school today, so I'm just getting done with that. So sorry, I missed the beginning of this.
There you are. Yeah, well, I'm glad you joined. And actually, we are extending even to 5:30. Anyway, we'd already intended to do that. So you're fine. You're fine on your time.
Perfect.
Yeah. And you can leave yourself unmuted because this is just it's a small group.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Lori and Morgan, is there anything there? Like, are you both thinking of coming? Now, what's your positions? Are you teachers or social workers or?
I'm the principal and Morgan
Principal.
works the kind of school.
And I'm the school therapist.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. So definitely the school therapist would be someone to come. And actually we do have principals that have taken the course because they also have people come into their office and start crying.
Quite often.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and
exactly. In small schools, especially.
And Dr. Deb Otis is they're doing a transition. So now it's just Morgan and Lori right now for next year. And so Lori is seeing an increase in students coming to her office, and we've been meeting about particular students. And I really do think it would be helpful. And I talk to them, like, even when we're doing our problem solving for kids, I talk to them and give them like, oh, here, I learned this at RIM. Like, this is, so they've heard me talk about it.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. I have been looking at, I don't know how familiar you guys are with EMDR, but I'm a marriage and family therapist. And so I've been looking at doing EMDR this summer. So I think that was my biggest question, is how I know that this isn't a therapy modality so much, but I guess that's one of the questioning things that was making me decide on what I should do in terms of, is this training worth it? Should I do both? Should I not do EMDR? Do you have any insight on that?
Well, I was actually trained in EMDR back before.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, more than 20 years back when it was new. So I can compare. Now I know it has evolved, and the people who are in RIM who have also done EMDR said it is evolving toward RIM. But everybody that uses EMDR says that RIM is further. It's more effective in a different way, because EMDR still feels very therapy-like because of the way it's approached and talked about. So that one of the things that's really different between, so EMDR and RIM are using the same unconscious system. So we're working with the same system, but we're working in very different ways. So in EMDR, people bring in their awareness of a trauma and then work on it. In RIM, we're not assuming that we know what the trauma is, because trauma can be innocuous, and especially the very beginning experience of trauma can be very innocuous. You wouldn't think it was a trauma, like, an example is a woman who, now this is not a child in school, but a woman who discovered that the reason she didn't have a boyfriend or a husband at 30 was actually started in the 5th grade, when a 5th grade boy came up and said to her, "You're ugly." And so she got to redo that. And find out that he did it because he liked her, which, having had a 5th grade son, doesn't surprise me at all. But she got to experience it from looking at his eyes, which which allowed her to really re-script her emotional memory experience. So I would say there's no need to do EMDR if you know RIM.
Very cool. Thank you. Thanks for answering that for me.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with EMDR. It's a good therapy. It's just
Mhm.
not REM. And REM
Right.
is not therapy. So it's so one of the things is in the very beginning, I was going to teach REM to I have been very involved with my professional group in the state for a long time. I used to, not now. And I thought I would, train my colleagues. But it was like I realized that was really hard because I kept butting up against all of the habits that therapists have acquired over the years. And this is really, it's really different than that. It's really, you can use REM adjunctively, but it's not therapy. So during the session, you have to respond differently than how you respond as a therapist.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So it's really, you have to let go of those habits and go in a more organic way, giving more control to the client or to the students, which is it's strange. I know it's very strange. That's why I was just saying that one of the things we learned during the training is that you don't have to be afraid of feelings, because actually we really have a great system that works with them very well. It's just that we keep stopping it from working, interfering with it by trying to control.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh, good, good. I'm so glad. So I would tell you that the people who are therapists who have learned REM shift to doing all REM.
Really?
Well, so much easier. So much
That's so
easier.
cool.
It's so much quicker with bigger results.
That's
So
awesome.
they still have their therapy practice, but they just do REM.
Right. Absolutely. That's really interesting. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. I've looked a lot into the stuff that Donna sent me and the different stuff that I've looked at. And it sounds really interesting. And I was kind of seeing some of those similarities with EMDR.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting to hear about all of the ways that it can be used. And obviously working in a school, therapy for me looks a little bit different than it does for a lot of therapists.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Schools, kids are not good candidates for psychotherapy.
Right.
Let's face it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes
their
it's very true.
their analytic skills and their willpower are just not fully developed. So and they get bored with that. Yeah. So that's why it's like it's been striking me over the last several years about REM is the very perfect intervention in a school, and that it doesn't have to take a mental health professional is also really very beneficial, because being able to train the staff that's already there, whoever they are, or whatever they're doing, is just, that's huge to be, rather than having to hire some mental health person to come in.
I do have a question, Dr. Deb. Did the Centennial Mental Health ladies, Miranda Miller is the head of Centennial Mental Health in Sterling, did she contact you because she was interested in learning more of this? And I met with her in a meeting about the ESSER money.
Oh, okay.
And so,
no, I don't think so. Haven't heard. What's her name?
Miranda Miller.
No, I haven't heard that.
She wanted to know more about it.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, no, it's great for mental health, especially for a mental health center, because you get quicker results, and they usually do for short term.
They were on this board that was trying to approve this money that we were trying to get, and they were asking questions about it. And so she said that if I just got information, if I could forward it to her, because she'd like to see what it's more about. I don't know, Morgan, do you know if Miranda, did you get this information from Miranda?
I got this from Donna.
Oh, okay.
Well, so what you can do, Penny, you have my permission to give her my email address.
Okay.
Which is just DRD. Jade, you want to put my email in the chat? It's just Dr. Deb, DRDEB at REMIMinstitute.com. And then tell her that I'd be glad to talk to her.
Okay.
And she also, you could send her to the website.
She did go there. Okay. She was looking for some data. So
yeah. So it'd be better for me to talk with her, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you for asking.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions? Any coaches have questions? Any Generation Schools coaches have questions?
Ellen, will you send us the recording? I have some schools that are interested, but they're just not, and so they're just not biting, and so I just keep sending them these videos and hope that they will watch it, because this is, like, I can sit and talk about it, but there's a magic, obviously, with Dr. Deb, and when we get in the room and you hear the stories, that's what I think really grabs the attention. And so if anybody can share, that would be ideal. Working with rural schools, like, this is a common issue, obviously, and I do think that this is something that we can do that's immediate in a way, and it also is economical, and we can kind of start, like Penny said, the more we get involved, the stronger it's going to be. So yeah, if we could get the recording out, Ellen, that's all.
Definitely, CJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will send it afterwards.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is probably useful because it is the end of school is coming quickly. When is the end of school in most places?
We get out the 22nd of May.
22nd of May. Okay.
We're the 27th.
Okay. So towards the end of May, pretty much, huh? Okay. Very good. And there are, for Lori and Morgan, there are two, there's a choice in June and a choice in July.
Yeah.
So for those times.
And we're not sure on a location yet, is that correct?
Say it again.
Do you know the location yet?
Yeah, it's going to be at Generation Schools office. And so that's where we'll hold class, and then we'll also be, doing some fun. We'll be having fun. I'll tell you that. We'll be having fun. And depending on whether people are vaccinated, we'll probably be wearing masks. If people are vaccinated, we won't. And what we did, like I had 2 in-person trainings, one in March right before we went in to lockdown, and I had one in September. And so what we did in September was we did do it outdoors, and as long as you were sitting in your chair, you could take your mask off, but they wore mask the rest of the time. And if there is some place that we end up being able to switch to outdoors during that class, that's a possibility. In terms of on the, the wash park, there is a park that's very close, and that kind of thing. Because your training, the coach's training was outdoors. Although we were a little chilly. It was the first week in October. We were chilly in the very morning. we brought our lap blankets, and then it got hot in the afternoon. Typical Colorado. But yeah. Well, I don't know, but I'm getting very excited about it. I can tell you that it's, it feels like it's starting to take shape, to see what it's going to look like. And I'm going to actually personalize this training, this essentials training for teachers. The training that the coaches and the other teachers have had was just the general essentials. This is it'll still be the same skills and everything, but I'm going to add some things that are relevant for teachers, kind of like when you're dealing with different age groups of kids, what's important and how to do that. Because with really young kids, it is different. It's still similar, but they're just not going to sit there and do it exactly the same way. They're going to be moving around, and but they actually are great at it because they just have their own imagination that just starts happening. So I think it's going to be I think this is, and in fact, I actually have had a call from somebody who's on the board for the DPS Foundation that they're interested in learning more. And so it's the beginning. And they said that, they can see this being really, really useful long-term, having a long-term relationship of really starting to implement a new model for emotional health in schools. That's really what the vision is. And so you guys are pioneers. So welcome aboard as a pioneer, because that's what this is about. You are
Well,
cutting new ground. You're cutting new ground, which makes it actually quite fun and exciting to be able
yeah,
to do that.
I love that. Thanks, Dr. Deb, for all you do and for your commitment to schools and teachers and kids. We appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You just gave me great big goosebumps. Oh, thank you. I think that it's because I started out as a nurse and then became a therapist. So, service is important to me. It's been the calling. And knowing that it works, or knowing that people are benefiting, it still continues to be important to me to get that feedback, because that's what I'm doing it for. That's the outcome I'm working for. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been like this collaboration that's developing with everybody is just so wonderful. It's really, as I was sharing with the coaches team earlier, it's like breaking ground by yourself is tough. It just isn't the same. And so this becoming a group of pioneers together is just really been gratifying. And that you all as teachers and SEL professionals bring so much to the table. So just know that you're really helping me understand how RIM can fit and how it can be most useful, really. So anyway.
Thank you, Dr. Deb.
Thank you.
Thank
You all for
you.
being here.
Thank you, Penny and Morgan, for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
All right.
All
Thank
right,
you.
we'll see y'all soon.